Hi, everyone. Let me give it on slideshow. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Well, thank you, Josh. I'm excited to be here. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be here. Um, just going to spend some time today talking about mindful creativity. I know it's there's a lot of buzzwords around that, but it is really been something that I've been using in my approach, especially as I'm creating content here at Headspace through the mindfulness, around mindfulness. But I just found it to be such a great approach and wanted to share some insights as well as some of the ways we use it when we think about meeting people where they are, creating content experiences that really are inclusive and engage folks in a way that will hopefully make them happier and healthier. All right, we'll get into it. So just want to tell you maybe just a little bit about myself. I consider myself a storyteller. I love telling stories. A quick little mini story about me is that when, I was born here, but grew up in Ethiopia and spent about the first 4 years of my life there. When I came to the US, trying to navigate a new language, a new culture, in my school, like elementary school or pre-K school, I just, in order to kind of navigate that space, I was just telling people lots of stories about Ethiopia. Now, I was very young, so these stories were wildly exaggerated, I'm sure. But I found that that was just such a wonderful way to connect, to feel, to bring people closer together. So it's always been, since then, I've just been obsessed with stories, telling them, creating them, experiencing them, and helping people kind of ignite curiosity, which is the next thing about me that I want to share, which is I am a deeply, deeply curious person, constantly wanting to know more, asking questions, and diving into the what ifs, the hows, and where are we going next questions. So there's a little bit about me, but one thing I do really feel is that it is a privilege to be able to create experiences that impact people's lives, that make them feel and hopefully make them heal. Which kind of leads me to a little bit of my professional background, which I spent about 10 plus, 15 plus years in television. So I was creating stories in the traditional media space, working on things like travel shows, food shows, reality shows, some popular, some maybe I won't mention, but there's a wide array of stories that I was really honing the craft in that space of being able to tell stories in that medium. Then digital came and kind of really shook up the space, and it was incredibly exciting. And my curiosity obviously got the best of me, and I really leaned into that space to figure out how do you tell stories within that digital, which is within the space of mobile phones, streaming platforms, social. So how do you tell stories that are impactful? It was quite different. There was learning how to engage people in through different mediums and telling stories there until today, which leads me to creating stories for a product within an app that are really just meant to create real impact in your life in terms of mental health outcomes and wellness outcomes. So how do you create those type of stories within this realm and using kind of all that experience, just creating finding the best ways to be able to come up with creative solutions and strategies within that space. So I'll tell you, which leads me, I'm at Headspace. So Headspace is a mental health wellness app. It has about 3,000 plus hours of content. They're guided, unguided videos, musics, etc., which we'll get into a bit here, that are all designed to help you feel healthier and happier. You can experience it many different ways. It could be choose your own adventure. You go in and find the thing that you're looking for in the moment of need, or we can curate your day. So you can give you content that where you can start your day with something, go into the afternoon with and something, and then also right before bed, provide you with the content experiences that could help. So many ways to engage with the app, but one of the best ways is to find a way to incorporate this content within your routine. So we'll talk about some of the content that lives in the app. So Content around meditation, obviously. So there'll be meditation courses, there's singles, there's SOS meditations, which are for in the moment need, timers, content around sleep, which includes Sleepcast, which is one of our most popular formats, which is essentially these immersive environments narrated with immersive sound behind them. So it's just a way to kind of set you up for a night of rest. There's wind downs, which are a little bit more mindfulness exercises, meditations for sleep, in the moment support if you wake up in the middle of the night for the nightmare, some sleep music, as well as soundscapes. There's also moves. So there's opportunities for content around yoga, dance breaks, which is something we did with Lincoln Center, partnership we did with Lincoln Center, where you can learn dance moves from around the world, which is really incredible. And mindful cardio, mindful walks, runs. And there's focus content. So content like focus music, breathing exercises, and meditation specifically to help you focus around study, around work, and around sports. Lastly, there's guided programs, which is something newer that we brought to the app, which are clinically validated experiences that used kind of evidence-based interventions to help drive mental health outcomes. We've done one for stress, and we've launched one for sleep as well. So with all of that content, so much there's obviously a tool there's some kind of tool that will help you, throughout any part of your life, whether it's during the day to meditate, at night to sleep, opportunity to find movement in your day, opportunities for focus. And if you want to do some deeper work and take a program and kind of dive in to make some more longer lasting change, that content is available as well. So I think people know Headspace primarily for meditation and mindfulness, but there's a trajectory of evolution and change that I wanted to kind of walk you through so you can see where we've been and where we are now. So in 2010, Andy, who was actually a monk for 10 years, met Rich, and they became friends, saw the power, wanted to share the power of meditation, and created Headspace, started developing Headspace. It really started as a meditation event business. So they were doing live events to get, teach people about meditation. Then obviously they wanted to spread that scale and spread the information, the word. They saw how excited people about it wider. And so they launched it. So in 2012, they launched the meditation app. That app was very much a different version. It was literally just meditations, 365 days of meditation. So you go on and you can go through a year of single meditations throughout the year. Then in 2019, we started experimenting. We started experimenting to create content beyond meditation and turn it more into a mindfulness app. So the first thing we experimented with was sleep. Bringing in some sleep content to see how people were resonating. We were hearing that people were interested in more content that could help support their sleep. So we started to build that out, and then that's when you see move content, focus content, music, all of that start to build. And that's around the time that I joined Headspace. And then in 2022, Headspace merged with a company called Ginger, which allowed us to offer access to mental health care provider support. So now we offer coaching, virtual coaching, therapy, and psychiatrist support as provider support. And that brings us to today. So as we've become more of a mental health care app, we had to create content that supports the coaches, therapists, and those who are on their mental health journey. So we're starting to create interventions and evidence-based content that can help, that go beyond mindfulness, that can help with real mental health care issues and needs. Oh, there we go. So all of that is really to kind of, me personally as a, I meditate, and obviously I meditated with Headspace, started meditating with Headspace before I started, but I really started to see how mindfulness was supporting all of our kind of creative choices and how we were moving through developing strategy and ideas around what content we wanted to do. And all of it was really leading towards how do we meet people in their moments of need. And I just found it incredibly powerful and a powerful approach to how you can really get an in-depth understanding of your audience, the user, and really build something that can be impactful in ways that even are beyond your goals. So I want to, before we even dive in, I just wanted to define, I think it's important to define mindful clarity because there's a lot of conversation around it. So for this particular talk, it's the practice of paying attention through a state of heightened awareness that creates spaces for insights, new ideas, and possibilities for solving problems, communicating and entertaining ourselves and others. And there's really three parts to that. There's three kind of elements that I've like leaned on and that we lean on. And the first is intention. So choosing to cultivate your awareness. So and that includes, wow, that was fun. Okay, that includes, who are you serving? Really taking the time to think about who are you serving? How do you want to show up and what type of impact do you want to make? Taking the time to really think about that prior, and I'll talk about tools in which we use to get there. The next one is attention. So really that's present moment awareness, sensations, thoughts, like what's coming up for you. It's what's coming up as you're going through your problem solving, as you're thinking through things. Where is your intention most needed? Are you are you seeing patterns? Are there, what are you paying the most attention to? Should you be paying attention to something else? Really spending that time to be in that moment and really feeling what's coming up and noticing what's coming up. And the last is attitude. So being kind, curious, and non-judgmental. So this is really an opportunity to check your bias. It's what are you bringing with you into the problem you're trying to solve, into the content you're trying to create. Are you open to what shows up? Are you adaptable? Are you showing up with empathy, with compassion to try and really understand the problem and kind of work with it? And also curious, staying super curious. So when intention, attention, and attitude are used together in this way, you really get to this really sweet spot where you're open, you're adaptable, you're really able to meet people where they are. And just again, I like to define these things because people say these words all the time. So for me, for us in this particular conversation is meeting people where they are, is like really pausing to release all your expectation and allowing the user or the audience to inform you on how they're showing up and what they need, and then using that to form your ideas and your strategy. And so a couple kind of just overarching key things that this kind of positions you, what sets you up for is it really shifts you from being an expert to a co-creator and collaborator. You really get, you get the opportunity to pull from multiple perspectives. You get to a real clarity on seeing where, when, and how you're most needed. And you really, because of you're taking this intentional time, you really can slow down and check your bias and see where things are showing up that perhaps you didn't, if you're moving quicker or you're moving without intention, you miss. And you're positioned to really show up best in the moment. So all of that is great. Just setting up just your headspace of what you're, how you want to be in the moment, how you want to show up when you're coming up with content strategy and developing ideas. But there are three kind of the big three that I use that we use to kind of inform a lot of that thinking. And the first one is data. Oh, I don't know how to go back. There we go, data. So understanding, like really understanding what matters. So we utilize member experience, understanding the member experience. We have a team that will like dive into understanding how members are experiencing the content currently, or the experience. We work with design research to get informed on how the design is impacting people's experience, their ability to engage, look at engagement metrics, programming metrics, seeing how and when content is being used, consumed, what's working, what are the pain points. And then this last one, which was something we added, which is this blind spot data. Data like who isn't in the data, who isn't in your subset already, who haven't you really dived in to get to understand and know. Your audience may not reflect the population that the general population or the world. And if your goal is to make the world happier and healthier, then you really have kind of an obligation to understand your blind spots and understand where who you may be, who may not be involved in the conversation. So getting some data around that is crucial. Second is science. So what is the science saying? Because we are a mental health care app, as well as a mindfulness app, it's crucial to understand the science of what's working. First, understanding what our members are needing. What is the internal kind of science saying for us? Where are the real needs that are being kind of requested, asked for? And you can find that obviously by, how are people engaging? What the members' experiences? What are people asking for? There's a really making sure there's a real easy communication and open communication with your user, your consumer, or at least being able to spend the time to really dive in and invest in finding out. Having those types of conversation is crucial to understanding what that need is. And then the human need. What's going on in the world? What is the science saying around some of things that are coming up globally, locally, and where you can see like where you can show up on a larger scale. Then looking internally at what's the ability to address the needs with the current kind of technology you have, with the access you have, with the resources you have, like what is the actual ability to address those needs, and what kind of experimentation do you need to do to really fine-tune your idea, the content. And it could be through A/B testing, it could be through coming up with various hypotheses and putting it out, but really spending time doing that kind of gives you some clarity and an opportunity to like go deeper. And the last is the art. How will it be consumed? What's the best medium for it? In the app currently there's video, there's audio, there's text, there's so many different ways you can consume media. So what's the best for what you're trying to, the impact you're trying to make? And secondly, what are the creative elements you want to include? What elements will make it engaging, delightful, relatable, that's kind of where some of your brand identity kind of comes in. Is it playful? Is it serious? Is there, some gravitas around it? Like how do you want to show up in that space, and what are those creative elements you want to include? Third is user experience. Content and user experience are like hand in hand. You really need to you want to understand how someone's experience with just getting to the piece of content, how they're living with it. When it ends, how do they feel when it ends? What's the flow look like? It's all a part of the process, and understanding what that's going to look like can also inform how you create the content, how you strategize around what you deliver. And lastly is content architecture. This I think is actually quite important. It's the copy, the thumbnail, where is it placed in where is it placed? If people can't find it, will they be able to, will it be impactful to them? Is it really saying what it's going to deliver? And you will use a little bit of science in that too, because there's a lot of testing around, what is the best way to title something, copy, what type of copy will drive people to engage with the content more and see the real value in it. So that's the big three. And those really are the things that, if you're coming in with a mindful approach, you really dig deep on all of these three in a way to see how you can really meet people where they are. So I want to just chat about a couple projects we've had that were really impactful and used a lot of this thinking. The first one I'll talk about is focus music. So this launched around, so in 2020, we'll just talk about that time again. It was a very, obviously we were quarantined, people were all working from home. There was a lot of conversation around having really trouble focusing with distractions. There was a lot of articles around mental fog that was happening during that time, and we were trying to figure out how do we, our members were asking for it. There was a human need for it at the time, and we started to ask ourselves, how can we show up in an interesting, new, engaging, kind of impactful way that actually hits to the root of the problem. So there was some science around focus music, or there is science around focus music that that it can help it's early science, but there's a lot of research being done around how focus music can potentially help, help you focus. And so we had some music in the app already that did this, but we're not a music platform. There's obviously, you can get music from Spotify, you can get it from so many other, other platforms. So how could we introduce music in a way that felt, that had our touch to it, an authentic expertise that really was there to kind of create impact and change for, and help well-being. So we worked with a scientist, Ulrich Kirk, who was already doing a researcher around focus music. And he worked with us to create kind of guidelines around what we could use around focus music and how we could create focus music to produce the environment that would help increase focus. And with that, we did that internally with our own audio team. We created music with that, using that framework, but we thought, well, we need to now kind of step into the space. So we actually brought John Legend on as our chief music officer, and he was able to kind of help us step into a space with his kind of authentic knowledge around music and his experience, and then curated a list of artists that came and we collaborated with to create, using those focus music guidelines to create focus music that would help in the moment for those who were having trouble focusing, working from home. We have a Hans Zimmer playlist, Erykah Badu. There's a host of really incredible artists that it was probably one of the funnest projects I worked on. But to be able to really build out these hour-long, 45-minute to hour-long instrumental music that hit all the guidelines for focus that would help you better focus. And what was actually exciting about this is that we were able to actually become part of the scientific conversation, where we validated, after the launch, we were able to validate through an experiment with Ulrich Kirk to really test out if it actually, if the content within the app is actually working, this music is working. And it proved to be true. So we saw that, music.
Good work. Try to take.
Oh,
I appreciate you doing it.
hello?
Just telling you, well, the doctor is,
Simple as that.
yes,
If
an
you
hour
see it
late,
there,
yes.
let the
Hey, Meryl, can you quiet him? Sorry about that.
I was muted too. Okay, there we go. All right, awesome. Yeah, so we found out it worked, and that was incredible, news for us. And then we became a part of that scientific conversation, which is always where you want to be. Okay, let's see. Great. Also in 2020, that we saw, obviously, the world was going through a huge shift. There was a lot of social unrest, unease. People were feeling a lot of feelings, and we wanted to show up not only for our members, but for the world at large. And we just couldn't. our current content in the app just didn't really meet the needs that people were asking for. And that was a real, like, obviously wake up call. And it allowed us to really that's when we actually brought on consultants to help us with our blind spot research, figure out who are we missing. We obviously have missed, we aren't able to meet people where they're at right now. Which is what we're saying we're doing, and we want to make the world happier and healthier, and we're not able to do that. So in the way that we'd like to. So we brought on a consultant to help us find out where our blind spots were, who we were missing, and then created collections with partners. So again, we couldn't pretend that we knew. We were like always in this conversation and just have the same people say something that they had never said before. So we utilized members from the community who are already doing this work that we could partner with to bring their expertise onto our app and share some of the work that, what works for them and their community. So we partnered with Nujimo Health, which is an indigenous virtual mental health care service. And they brought some of their indigenous kind of perspective and practices into the app. We also partnered with Asian Mental Health Collective, who is an organization that really tries to destigmatize and bring mental health care access to the Asian communities. And we brought them on to bring on some of their community and teachers to help us build out content that could be supportive and in the moment. We also enlisted our teachers who are currently in the app to create some allyship content, growth content. And this also made us really look at our teachers. Who are we, who is able to speak to folks in the moment and be able to kind of just increase the conversation, awareness. And right now, at that time, we only had Andy in the app as well as Eve. So these were the two voices we had in the app. And with this research and the help of a consultancy group, we were able to add new teachers like Dora, Kasanga, Rosie, and Samantha. Oh, sorry, guys, and Samantha. They all each come with their own unique perspective, and they show, and they're able to kind of their own voice and be able to speak to things that they're passionate about and be able to share their teachings. So it really broadened our perspective, broadened our scope, and we're able to meet more people, people's needs. I'll go through the rest, on time, so I'll go move a little quickly, but we also can do this, have been doing this with partnerships. So we had spent many years inside our house, was really trying to motivate people to get back outside in nature. We know there's a deep connection between nature and wellness and mental health. So we were able to create, and this was like obviously a very synergetic partnership, create content with the National Parks Foundation that featured their parks, but also integrated some of our content into those spaces. Well, not into the physical spaces, but into the app. So we created both video content, some audio content, some sleep casts, wind downs, where we could kind of immerse environments. And just to go back to the science, I mean, this literally the science, there's, science that says that even just looking at nature content can create, can boost your wellness and lower stress levels. So we were taking that in and listening to nature music and content. So this is what we use that with the data, that knowing that this would be a incredibly synergetic partnership to create content for that met people who where they are in this venue. And then lastly, I'll just do a quick conversation chat about these guided programs, which this is new for us. This is we obviously use this is new in the sense of what for other people to notice that Headspace is doing something that's a bit more clinically supported by around mental health. But we have a team of researchers, coaches, therapists that we were able to build out curriculum that used cognitive behavioral therapy. This one was cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, that we're able to build out experiences, programs that could really actually create long-lasting change. These are clinical interventions that are hopefully have the power to really have deep impact in someone's life. And again, we had to think about creatively, how do we want this to show up? Because clinical content isn't always the most engaging. So we worked with video, animation, audio, and created these kind of integrated multimedia kind of experiences in the app to present clinical content. And just quickly, I'll mention that all the content I spoke about was everything that lives within the app, but there are ways to, that we're aiming to meet people outside of the app. So this is a partnership. This is a content we created for Netflix, 3 series that we put out. So so that you can, if you're already on that platform to watch something else, maybe you can choose a little meditation or a little opportunity to learn about your sleep. Podcasts. There's podcasts within the app, but we're also there's podcasts that are on across all platforms, anywhere that you can get your podcast. And then lastly, something really exciting that just launched on March 6th is a VR experience that we worked with MetaQuest on. This is an incredible, if you ever get the opportunity to try it, it is really incredible, but it's just, immersive, experiences that are not only mindfulness exercise, but there's movement, there's a bit of there's like these shapes that move around. It's a really, really impactful experience that I encourage everyone to try if you can. But this obviously was, how do we meet a younger audience who might be gaming already, who might already be in the space, and find ways to meet them where they are, find ways to have engaging content that can really shed a light onto new opportunities for wellness and mental health care. And that is where I ended. I think that's the last slide. Yes, thank you.
All right, awesome. All right, thanks so much, Julia. That was fantastic. So we'll open up for some questions. Phil had a question. He's in a noisy coffee shop, so I will read it for him. But if you have other questions, throw it in the chat and indicate whether you want me to read or not. Northeastern University professor Matthew Goodwin is testing user biometric data from multi-sensor wrist jewelry worn by autistic children to detect a pending tantrum up to 3 minutes in advance. Very cool. This allows caregivers to potentially intervene and remove the stressors. Are you doing anything with biometrics to proactively detect the effectiveness of your app or give users signal they would benefit from an exercise in that moment?
We haven't. That's incredible. That's really great. We are in the moment really thinking about other kind of, right now our focus has been meditation and sleep, and we haven't quite, and guided programs around stress and anxiety, depression, things like that. We have not gone in that route, but it is something I know that we're interested in exploring, and something we're going to lean into, I think, a bit more as we continue to create content around that.
Cool. All right, I have a question. I always
Yeah.
like try to jump in before anybody else gets one. So I guess one of the questions I have is, like my background's mostly in like the museum space, and there's a lot of like thought around like how do you like segment audiences, and a lot of times there's this thing about even like people who are in museums. Some people are like, Madeline, you know the different terms of this, but there's like the grazers, there's the people who dive real deep, there's like all these different behaviors, and I'm wondering, how does Headspace sort of segment their audience, or how do they think about their audience in terms of like the different depths of engagement that they can expect from them?
Yeah, I mean, so there are obviously kind of power users that we know are going to be, who've used it for a long time, that want to kind of expand their experience. And we, again, it's like we almost have to think of them all, and then they're independently, and how we can meet each one of them independently. So, and then there are people who are actually just don't even really know about like just testing it out. A friend gave it to them. And they're just seeing if this might be something that might help or be of interest. So, and you see that in the engagement, and how that, maybe high drop-offs from, just checking something out of curiosity. And obviously those who may be more interested kind of lean in a bit more. So I think we look at them independently and figure out kind of the medium that will hit the two extremes that might but also create independent kind of opportunities for those who do want to highly engage, and then for those who are new. So I guess we're lucky in the sense that there's a breadth of content, and we can kind of deliver that, or we can kind of have that show up, especially as we start to get into personalization. We'll really be able to help people get exactly what they're looking for at the level that they're looking for it. And I think that'll only get refined as we, continue to use, those opportunities for personalization.
Yeah, I would imagine personalization is like a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
All right, Madeline, you want to ask your question?
Always. I was curious about how, like you talk about a content team, and there's like the content that is produced in terms of video production, audio production, that kind of content. But I'm so curious. So I'm a narrative strategist at Blue Cadet, which means that my job is to systematize stories and work with a UX designer to figure out how to convey them to a user. And I'm so curious, and to the extent that I have to like wait for Andy to come back in to tell me to recenter on my breath, because I find myself thinking about this while meditating on the Headspace app. Like, how does your team determine how much does the content team work with the product team to figure out like what that UX is? Like, you introduced this kind of like almost timeline through your day recommendation structure at one point. And I'm so curious what that kind of cross-team collaboration looks like at Headspace, because it is so content heavy, but the function of the product is so unique, and the UX opportunities are so specific that I think about this way too much. So I'm here to ask you this.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. We're highly collaborative. So it's almost like as I'm, if I'm developing a project or a, initiative, then I'm in a room, there's a team that working on that. So, and that team includes someone from engineering, someone from brand, someone from like literally every part. There's a representative, someone from the research team, a designer, and we're all working together. Collaborative. It's collaborative work has its pros and cons, but I think it's in the sense that it's really you because of there's so many perspectives, but it's that mindfulness approach. You need all these perspectives in order to meet people where they are. You need all of that information. So in order to create the content that's going to be delivered to the right people at the right time and giving them exactly what they need. So I think a lot of it has to do with this like incredible cross collaboration between all of them. So all decisions are made collectively. I mean, there's a driver, obviously, there's, people from each seat, but we do have to think about, okay, this is the content we want to make. We can't just go make it. We go, okay, how is this going to be, how's this going to show up? Do we need engineering support? Is there, some design elements that'll help it become more engaging or get people in it more? How can we work with the brand and the illustrations and the copy? So it's highly collaborative, and there are a lot of meetings and a lot of kind of consensus making, but I think the more we do it, the faster we get at it. So I think, I think there was a time when we were quite siloed and we were just making everyone was just trying to build and grow and scale. And I think, now we're really using this kind of approach as we create especially things that are in the clinical care space.
Great. Sarah had a question. She's in a noisy coffee shop. So Sarah, you want me to ask for you? Okay, excellent. Or she apologizes for a basic question. I don't think this is a basic question. This is a good question. She'd like to hear more about what your day-to-day work looks like at Headspace. What might be unique to your role as content director at Headspace?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I think that's super kind of, well, I'll tell you, whenever we have this is the like fun, unique one, is that whenever we do our all hands, we always start with a meditation. So the whole company meditates together. So I love that. I think it actually sets you up to actually think mindfully around just how you show up at work and you create. So that's one. But I think other than that, I think it's just deeply collaborative. So we're checking in with, there are lots of projects happening. So I'm constantly in, meetings with product managers, seeing how we can work together. I'm working with the brand team. We're doing brainstorms. We're, talking to our content data kind of system to figure out like how long, figuring out timelines, working with the production team. So I think it's just a lot of cross collaboration, conversations, making sure things are aligned, having brainstorms, setting up, and really thinking about kind of strategically what our next kind of steps are creatively, especially as partnerships come up or our partnership opportunities come up, or other really, kind of new, interesting like areas that we can step into.
All right, I'm gonna ask a question. You'd mentioned a little bit about like experimentation, and you'd also mentioned some like A/B testing. Can you talk a little bit about like how new ideas get kind of prototyped or tested at Headspace?
Yeah. So sometimes, sometimes it depends on timing, and sometimes you launch something and you test it, you make sure like you launch it with informed decisions with data and science, and then you're able to test it, whether you're using things like, surveys, D-Scout, which are really kind of getting some real live feedback. But other times, like let's say it's something as simple as, we want to, we want to see how an experience kind of performs if we change the flow, we move things around. So we create kind of a pilot program, not fully done, but we put it into, kind of I think we've generally used a lot of D-Scout. Where we're able to kind of have people go through the experience, give us feedback, get some learnings around that. Put surveys actually in the app itself for members who are actually using the content to get real-time feedback. And then other times we've actually just done a quick kind of outside of members, but just an outside kind of survey to see like what titling names resonate with people, figuring out. So it's a bit of like data that we already have incurred, some programs we instill to kind of get real life feedback from people actually using the content, as well as some internal kind of surveying that we do.
Okay, awesome. Sherry, you had a question. Do you want to ask? Do you want me to ask? You ask.
I can ask. I'm in a quiet space. Hi, thank you so much. This has been fascinating. And collaboration and mindfulness, I love it. It's all fantastic, but sometimes you have to work fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess this is not in my question that I wrote in the test, but how do you prioritize when you have to work fast? And then collaboration, there's, sometimes that can take a long time with everyone's opinions and ideas and thoughts, which is great. But what do you do when there's a disagreement? How do you manage decision making, as you move forward with different products or features that you're creating?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think just the creative process will always have like, there'll always be some, friction. And I think that friction sometimes actually is helpful in the sense that it opens up opportunity to think about something in a different way. Like if you're strapped for time, and engineering's like, we can't get this done in this amount of time. And so I think sometimes we have to decide if it's, if we launch something, do we have enough there that's solid, that we feel really good about, that we can launch, and then as like a MVP, like the first version, and then come back to it and refine it with our, with the learnings that we've gotten from that first launch. So I will say there's a lot of like, I would say you have your ideal and you end up kind of putting out something that is maybe like a fraction, a little bit less than what you may have wanted. But it's that the fact that it's out kind of gives you even more insight, more learnings, more understanding, and then you're able to really kind of lean in a bit more and on the next iteration. So it's never perfect, and that you kind of almost sometimes have to do some of the validating after. But as long as you feel, but you don't put anything out that you don't feel like everyone is like, we have to really do consensus. We go, okay, if we remove this feature, can we get this out on this time? And then you make those decisions as they come based on what you kind of think is the outcome you want to at least start to get information on now, so that you can start to like reiterate on it. So you never really, I would say, like putting out do you ever really put out the best perfect thing? It's like there's always opportunity for more. So I would say it's a little bit of kind of give and take.
All right. So actually, Alina, in the spirit of storytelling, is there an example there? Is there an example of something you guys have shipped that's been like much more successful or much less successful than you anticipated? Or like needed to be like radically iterated?
Good question. Well, I think like our sleep content's quite interesting in the sense that like when we put out, we just threw it when it first started in 2018, we really just put out like some sound music, some sleep music, and maybe like, I think there was 4 or 5, like really maybe 5 sleep casts, which are these like sleep stories. And didn't, just because it was really more, honestly, it was really like a test. We were just like, are people going to engage with this? And initially it was slow. Initially it was a bit slow. We're like, maybe this wasn't the right fit. But literally by the end of that year, like there was real traction, and it had like, and we started refining kind of the features. So because, okay, now we can like, you can, choose what the volume level is. Do you want to hear more of the voice or more of the music? Okay, great. So we just kind of kept adding to it and increasing kind of the experience, and then improving the experience. And then it's literally has become like one of our top performing pieces of content are these sleep casts. So so I think I would say like immediate hits are I just try not to like look in that way, because it can be an immediate hit, and then it can like literally the audience can be very like fickle, so it can become very like impactful for the moment, and then it kind of fades, and then you find it, but as long as you feel like it's useful and there are people who are getting like the needs of it, you feel like it's a win regardless, to me.
Actually, that kind of like breaks through to another question. Like, how do you guys think about like KPIs? Like, what are the things that you guys are going for? Is it about adding new users? Is it about retention? Is it about bringing people sort of into sort of like down the rabbit hole and like, and giving them making more super users? What are the sort of things you guys are after?
Yeah. I think, honestly, there are obviously overarching company KPIs, but I think for each content that has it kind of its own KPI. Like if we're making something, like kind of goes back to what you're saying about the different people, the different audiences, and how do we reach them? But if, for example, guided programs, we're creating that for people who really want to make long-term behavioral changes. That's a very targeted, specific kind of group. Obviously, it's for everyone, but we really want to see like those who are actively engaging in long-term kind of wanting to make these long-term changes with acute, maybe mid to acute levels that might need more care, might need more hand-holding. So the KPIs for that are unique to that group. And then if there's someone who's just is just kind of testing out the waters, not even sure if meditation is for them, then maybe something like the national parks, our KPIs for that is different. They're like, okay, are different. So, some closing your eyes and meditating is not easy for a lot of people. So maybe there's these videos that are eyes open kind of video meditations where you're in the moment. That becomes like, okay, so maybe it's just how many people are engaging with the content, regardless of if they're super users or not. And I think the goal is like, how can we meet as many people as we can in their moments of need? And so each content has its own unique set of kind of KPIs that we're looking for. And we really kind of measure them based on the impact we're trying to make.
All right. So that cues me up to my last question, which is, can you talk a little bit more about personalization? Like how do you, you guys have, things for children, things for sleep, things that, like various audience. How do you think about serving up sort of an experience that's either personalized or generalized for all those different experiences or users.
Yeah, and things for passionate Pittsburghers. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think this is where we're in the process of really fine-tuning that. I think what, originally when we started out this, that kind of start your day with this, and we were really just kind of making kind of guesses based on how user engagement, general user engagement, and kind of placing things where we thought they could be helpful and useful in that moment. And obviously, as we're like, getting more into personalization and looking into like AI and how do we get information? How are we able to like provide the right information to the person in their moment of need? There are a lot of like obviously complexities around that, but it is like something where it can be incredibly impactful, and it's actually what people want. They really do want to be served up without thinking, and if your product or the app can do that, you can open up and go, oh, it knows me, especially in my moments of need. How like impactful would that be, and how it really serves the goal and the mission. So I think we're looking into kind of, I think there's already some testing around that and figuring out how we can use AI to personalize kind of content and content delivery.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, I honestly, I probably go off forever about this because like there's such an interesting thing in that, you guys are asking for a lot of people's data and like, and you need to know a lot about them and a lot of very personal things. But then I think also as a brand, you have a very sort of trusted brand, and you have to be very, and there's something very caring about the brand. So, which I think actually allows for that sort of exchange, to work.
Yeah, especially now that we're like squarely in mental health, care, like there's a lot of regulations in place and like things, so there's a lot of privacy, we're setting ourselves, you set ourselves up to be in a place where you feel safe and you are safe to do that. And that we have all the kind of parameters in place where that it's actually, used to like benefit you and not, and to be able to create some sort of personalization that will help with, true mental health outcomes.
Yeah, yeah, and that way you have to be very careful about, how that sort of interplay between being sort of giving and extractive, like it has to be.
100%. Yeah, that's why I think there's a lot, it's early day. We're trying to, everyone's kind of sussing out what the right balance is and how to do it in a way that is thoughtful and impactful at the same time.
I love it. Okay, well, Elina, we're kind of out of time. Thank you. But do you have any sort of like closing thoughts or closing words for the Future Spaces community?
I guess, I really mindfulness, I'm kind of coming back to mindfulness because I just find that it's not just obviously personally, but if you really look at how you're creating content from this kind of standpoint of into, what's your intention, where's your attention, and what's your attitude of the type of content you want to put out into the world, being able to meet people where they are is like a huge benefit. And I think if we're able to kind of be in a space where we're open and adaptable and curious, we really have the opportunity to create a healthier and happier world.
Oh, I love it.
As cliche and as that corny as that sounds, but
I know that was wonderful.
but it's
I love
true.
it. It's awesome. Well, Elina, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody for joining us today as well. Hope to see you guys all again next week. Thank you again. All right, we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
See everyone. Have a great weekend.